Like, there's two kinds of people in the fucking, in the U.S. elite. Generational wealth, like in politics and media, right? So you have, like, for example, you have George W. Bush and Anderson Cooper.
Okay.
And then there's the middle-classy kids who were really good at school and got all the really good grades and went to all the really good, worked really hard to get to the really good schools. And
married well.
Barack Obama and Rachel Maddow. And then you have the third sort of class of boorish oafs who, like, nobody wants in their club.
Nobody.
Donald Trump.
Nobody.
And fucking Sean Hannity. So those are like this. Those are the three disparate groups in America, and people got so tired of the smart kids in school and the generational wealthy fucking establishment people that they went for the boorish oafs, bullies who bullied their ways into the room, like fucking Trump and Hannity, and just fucking wrecked the joint. And that's how they get it.
It's funny because, like, the generational wealth hates the boorish oaf because they think that's what middle class or low income households or families produce. Then the smart kids hate them because that reminds them of where they might be coming from.
Exactly.
And it's really crazy because it's super stupid.
And you know, and you have people like Hannity and Trump with, like, massive chips on their shoulders because they can't get in to either one of the groups. They won't let them in. You know what I mean? Like, and then that's what you got, and that's what you have. Like, you have a whole fucking, this whole cultural fucking, like.
Are you allowed to say low income family?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
I don't know. Do you know? Just side note, what I heard today.
Poor family? Can you say poor? I don't know.
Can you say that?
Poor. Yeah,
can you just say, like, financially disadvantaged?
Yeah, but that's like, you know, I mean, why not say poor? Because they're fucking poor. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm not fucking shitting on them. I'm shitting on the people who made them poor.
Yeah, because it's like society.
You know, it's a systemic fucking thing. It's not like down to them. It's not their fault that they're fucking poor.
No, that's how you get poor.
Yeah. I mean, you're generationally wealthy, and you're also generationally poor. You know, there's like people, the likelihood is that you're going to stay in that socioeconomic strata that you were born into. Like, it's just, like, that's the reality of it. You know, and so, like, you have, like, and all these people, like, that I was talking about, like the Rachel Maddows and the Barack Obamas and of this world, they all came from, like, a middle class, you know, like, status. They didn't come from, like, there's very, very few people from the lowest rung. Up there. They very rarely do they make. I mean, they trot them out all the time to show you, like, how what a failure you are for not being that. You know what I mean? But yeah. From poor, they stay poor. People come from rich, they stay rich. You know, it doesn't. It's not
that complicated.
It's not that complicated. It really isn't that. I mean, the U.S. is not complicated at all. It's really not complicated. Like the U.S., it's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. Yeah. And it's always been that way, and it always will be. And
you got me on that. I didn't think you were going to say
that. The country's, like, you know, from its outset, it's just been designed that way. The guys who designed it were the richest guys in the fucking country. Like, the founding fathers, as they like to be called or call themselves, they were the richest guys at the time. They were all the fucking top, wealthiest. George Washington was the biggest property owner in the colonies at the time. No, he was, without question.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, he's the one who's writing the laws, although he wasn't, but they were all contributed to the philosophy that wrote those.
They were all that cohort, you know what I mean? And they all, you know, and they wrote.
I mean, how many of the founding fathers were slave owners?
Like, most of them.
Right.
They were either slave owners or lawyers for slave owners. No, they were. It's true.
No, I just think funny.
And
there's
so
always lawyers around.
and so you know, they designed the system to favor them staying in charge. The thing they hated more than anything was democracy. They fucking hated democracy. The last thing they wanted, if you look at the original Constitution and take out the amendments and all the other shit, like, it's the most undemocratic fucking Constitution you can imagine. Like, senators weren't elected, legislators weren't elected. You have to own property to fucking vote. Which is crazy. You know, like black people were completely.
Black people were property.
Were property, or if they weren't property, they were completely forbidden from voting. It was white male property owners only. The Native Americans who were there first were completely disregarded from the political system. And like, the country continues on that way, and they lose their shit. I watched a thing today about them, you know, that not like. Ron DeSantis has decided that you can't have there's an AP African American history class that can't be taught in Florida schools, which is fucking utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, utterly ridiculous.
There's like this white lash coming back.
Yeah. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. I mean, and like, and like an AP history class, it's not like something that everyone's going to get taught. It's like, like I took AP history, but it was a voluntary class. It was like a, what do they call it?
Advanced placement?
Elective.
Oh, an
An elective. You chose it.
This is
you
advanced placement. That's what
AP, advanced placement, yeah. So you take it if you were like going, like I took a lot.
You were probably thinking you're going to go, you want to get a few electives on pad your university paper, or you just
That's exactly why you did it, and why you would do something like that. And that's why you would take AP African American history. You would take like, I mean, I took a couple of AP courses. I was just thinking about one of them the other day. I took this course called Great American Lives, and it was biographies. We read like the biography of Harry Truman. We read biography of H.L. Mencken. We read Malcolm X. We read, God, I can't remember who. I remember those three. But it was like 7 or 8 biographies that we read, and it was an advanced placement course. And you used it as like, as like extra shit to help you get into college.
Yeah.
And that's what that AP African American history course was. But they made a big fucking huge deal out of it because they don't want people to know that, this is what the country was based on and what it is still predicated upon. Like those things have not changed.
Right.
It is like a deeply inequitable situation. Like there's no equality. There's no like sort of even like the kind of like tiny little sort of like concessions that have been made towards working and poorer people are just like nothing in comparison to the benefits that the wealthy have gotten over the years and are still getting to this day.
Sure.
And
I mean, it's funny because did we talk about this recently about the tax code system? Because that's why I keep asking questions about it's like semantics and different vocabulary usage in America. It's like, the tax code is so fucked up and so complicated to read.
Yeah, it's.
And why do you wonder?
Well, it's super complicated.
You need to get a lawyer to fucking.
Well, you need to go.
Well,
it's not even lawyers. It's like H&R Block or TurboTax or.
Yeah.
And guarantee
the whole
you,
industry.
But I guarantee you, every time a law comes up to simplify the tax code, the TurboTax guys, the H&R Block guys, they're there lobbying and to say, look, don't fucking change any of this shit because we're making a fucking fortune out of it.
But I think there's some kind of study that's saying like the correlation to how easily the tax code is read is like there's a correlation between that and how well there is like social services and social welfare.
Yeah, I believe that.
I believe that because I was like, it's just simple: 20%, 30%, 40%, based up to this and that and that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
After you make this much.
And that's why I mean, keep you stay poor because it's like at this point where you're just kind of like people do get offended.
It kind of is how it works here. Like up until a certain amount, you pay this much. Up until there, you pay that much. Up until there, you pay that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, you're not paying like.
Well, because you shouldn't be bankrupted by being sick.
No. And there's all kinds of like, and they have all these sort of like deductions and loopholes and all this fucking shit.
It's crazy, and that's why, when you see somebody like it is criminal what's going on, but.
What is guys like fucking Trump don't pay any taxes.
Right.
And it's not just Trump, it's every fucking real estate guy in New York doesn't pay any fucking taxes.
The thing is that the idea behind that before, and I remember when I was growing up, was that they're not paying their taxes because they're paying out to different companies and they're creating an economy. He is not doing that.
No, and
most people are not.
But that's a fallacy anyway because they're not doing that. That's like the makers. That's the myth of the makers and the takers. You know what I mean? Mitt Romney's big thing, like 47% of the country don't fucking do anything. You know what I mean? They're takers, and the makers and the job creators. That's such a pile of garbage. It's fucking ridiculous.
Job creators.
Yeah, it's just a pure pile of dog shit. It doesn't mean anything. Like the job.
They're the biggest
those people do not take money and put it back into fucking the economy and job. They take it and they offshore it.
They do not.
They hold it. They figure out ways to dodge the taxes on it. Well, they don't even need to do that in the States. Remember the Pandora Papers? There was nobody from the States there because they don't need to because the States is the biggest fucking tax haven there is ever. You know what I mean? So yeah, like so the whole fucking thing is rigged for the wealthiest people among the population, and then they fucking send this shit out there to distract us with, you know what I mean, so that we don't they don't get together. I mean, it's not fucking. There's no we had Martin Luther King Day last week, right? There's no, it's not. There's no mystery as to why they fucking assassinated him after he started talking about, like, you know, economics. You know what I mean?
And
like
populism.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
real.
And the same thing with guys like Fred Hampton had a guy. I was reading about Fred Hampton only a couple weeks ago. There was a guy. There was like this southern. You ever remember like Chicago where Fred Hampton was? It's only like, you know, it's like an hour's drive, and you are in fucking banjo picking redneck country. You know what I mean? And those people are as fucking poor and fucking like downtrodden.
White and black.
White and black, yeah. Downtrodden as the people in the fucking cities. And Fred Hampton had this one guy, I can't remember his name, I'll find it. And
okay.
this guy used to fly his fucking, like, his Confederate flag at these fucking marches that the Panthers were having. Like, it didn't carry that flag didn't sort of carry the same kind of.
Was that like a Dixie, like?
It was like a Dixie rebel thing, you know what I mean? And this guy was like a fucking, like a populist, you know, like. But
he was like the economics.
The economics, yeah, and like it was this whole thing, and that was what scared the shit out of them, to have this guy and Fred Hampton being at the same place talking the same message. That fucking terrified.
I get that, but that's so funny because, you know, the funny thing is that, like, slavery it was good for some white people, but it wouldn't have been good for a lot of
most white people. It was terrible for.
Yeah, because they're part of a system. They could actually also be enslaved too.
Yeah.
They're, like, you know what I mean, because of the financial. I mean, like the fact
Well, I mean,
that
they
your
were
body
de facto enslaved because they were, you know, I mean, they weren't like, they weren't subject to like the chattel slavery of like, you know, but like, you know, they were impoverished. I mean, all the job. I mean, if you're living in a capitalist society and all the jobs are taken by slaves, by free, where do you do exactly? And that. You know,
so then I get it, but then it's really fucked up now that it's a sign of, like, you know, white nationalism and like the fact that you don't think
that's a distraction. I mean, and it works. It works.
Yeah, but it's also offensive.
Yeah.
To think that there was any other reason why they were waving that flag around and all these other people were dying in that civil war was not for slavery and not for the profit of these people.
Yeah.
They're stupid.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, if anybody who's even like the most minor fucking student of the Civil War knows that both sides had a draft and both sides had the ability that if you had like enough money, you could. It was $300 in the Union side, and it was the same on the Confederate side. You could pay to have somebody else serve in your place.
You know what I mean?
You know, and this is, you know, it was as blatant as that. You know, so it was like, again, like it was the rich man's war and a poor man's fight, and it was like a rallying cry. I mean, you know, the reason that the Irish, that second wave of Irish came in the 1850s and the 1860s after the famine in Ireland, the famine that started in late 1848 and kind of ran until like the 1870s, where they were coming over and they were coming over on the boats from Ireland with nothing, and there was a guy there going, fight for the Union and you'll get your citizenship and whatever the fuck, and they gave him a gun and they sent him down and
they were the first.
They were the first to go in, and it
doesn't matter.
Yeah. You know, and it was like, you know, kind of if like you study the history of the Irish in America, like the Irish, the first wave of Irish came in the late 1700s and the early 1800s, late 1600s, right through that whole period, and they were called the Ulster Irish, the Scots Irish, and they were they were fleeing sort of persecution
because of their religion.
Because of their religion, well, they were Protestants, and when the Roundheads and all that kind of shit was going on, and the English Civil War and all that shit, they fucking fled that to come to the U.S. and they're the banjo picking hillbillies from Appalachia. And then the Catholic Irish came over in the 1850s and 60s, and they were the sort of, you know, the tenement, like Northeast tenement Irish from Boston and Chicago and New York.
Totally taken, like.
And they were fighting against each other in the Civil War.
Probably so confused.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, it's an interesting part of the Irish sort of diaspora is that like so much of the Irish diaspora that they talk about is like that sort of Kennedy sort of like wing of it, where it's like the Irish. No, but it began way back. Like my family, my second name is Wright. And my family were that original Scots-Irish, Ulster-Irish contingent that came over. Like my grandmother did our you know,
Family
did our
tree.
fucking family tree. We go way the fuck back to the like
Oh.
way back into the 1600s on my
Really?
dad's side. My mom's side was the fucking second wave of Irish
Okay.
that would have come over in like I think my grandmother. For years I thought my mother was born in Ireland, but it turns out it was my grandmother who was
Okay.
born in Ireland.
Oh.
On my mom's side, but like you know, and that's like, you know, that was, and there was like these two groups of people who were not fucking getting any benefit
From this.
from any of the shit, slavery or like, you know, they weren't getting any benefit from slavery, and yet they were the ones who fought each other
And died
to
for
the
it.
death
Yeah.
for the shit. It's just fucking bizarre,
Doesn't
man.
really surprise me.
I mean, like this is one of the reasons that they don't want people studying like
History.
history
Yeah, 'cause
because
it would be horrible.
You would go, holy shit! Why
what are we doing this
why,
again
why
for?
are we still doing
Or why
this?
are we doing
yeah,
this
yeah.
again
Why
and
are
again?
why didn't we ever talk? Why didn't anybody ever tell me about that? I remember when I first went to
You said
college.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I first went to college, I took that first African American history class in.
Yeah. You felt cheated.
I did. I felt like I'd been fucking lied to, and I had been
Well,
lied
you
to.
have
There's
been lied
so
to.
much, you know, that I didn't know about it. Like, you know, there's so many people found out, like in 2021, about the Tulsa fucking riots. Like nobody
believe
fucking
that.
knew about that, right? You know, nobody knew about that. I mean, I remember studying it, like
Yeah.
and like I couldn't believe that
Yeah,
nobody.
because
And I like studied it, learned it, and forgotten about it because you never get reminded
Because
about
the
those
narrative
things.
is you got your freedom, and what'd you do with it? But really, like
Yeah,
they
it
did do
was-
something with it.
well,
And
it was
honestly, when there was
constantly-
a
yeah,
lot
it
of
was-
business
yeah.
being done between black people, they did have quite an emerging economy
Yeah,
in certain cities, especially.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah,
they
yeah.
decimated them.
Yeah, they just any.
No, they didn't just.
anytime.
They just killed them. Yeah.
I mean, it happened everywhere. It's not just
Yeah.
like you can't just like single out places like Tulsa.
yeah.
But like
No, but
you
in
know,
Florida I
but-
saw shitloads.
Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
They fucking destroyed Syracuse, New York in the 50s. There was a huge, vibrant, like black community in Syracuse, New York, and they put the I-81, the Interstate 81 fucking throughway and 90 throughway
I
system
mean, I believe they did
right
that.
through the
I
city.
believe they did that a lot with like the making of New York and Manhattan.
A lot, they did that in a lot of cities. They did that all across the
So
Northeast.
that people could drive
Yeah.
in through this from the suburbs.
If you go into any of the cities in along that sort of strip, along like sort of Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Rochester not so much actually. Rochester, they bypassed Rochester. It's like you know to get into the city,
Right.
the sort of main motorway goes past. But like Buffalo, the fucking motorway goes, the highway goes right through it, and then all through Ohio, like Cleveland. What's that other fucking city on the fucking I can't remember. Gary, Indiana. You know, all along that sort of that run up towards Detroit. I mean, those cities were all like sort of bisected by the freeways, and they always put them into the African American neighborhoods and just divided those cities and destroyed them. Divided those neighborhoods and
Makes
destroyed
sense.
them.
It makes sense.
You know, but the point is like, why can't I mean like, I mean this is the thing is they don't want people to learn that because
Yeah.
they would be able to sort of relate it to the shit that's happening to them in their lives now and realize that nothing has fucking changed. Not just in the fucking black communities and in the US, but in the fucking white communities as well. They're destroyed. I mean, they've just like, you know, they use like immigrants and they use like the other.
Yeah.
Whether the other be like
Scary.
black people, but they're scary people,
Yeah.
right? And they're the ones who caused you the fucking problems, but they're not. The problems are being caused by the ones who are telling you that those are the people that caused you the problems.
It's the thing
You
that
know,
always
it's-
tell me.
it's-
It's the Murdoch with the cookie.
It's the Murdoch with
and
the
cookie and the
fucking
crumbs and the
thing
immigrant.
again. Yeah, it's so frustrating, man. I just saw that thing today I saw a guy being interviewed about the African American history, AP African American history class. And he was just being asked by the white news guy, like, well, why do you have to have a separate history class? And I'm like, dude, did you fucking go to school, man? Do you know, like, do you
No,
not
he
remember
did,
what
you
you
know.
didn't learn in school?
How could you know that?
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So
like,
once again, I ventured into that area, which is like a favorite topic of mine. It's like
Yeah.
always has been. It's like the inequality of
Education,
of
history.
the American system and the lack of education that people get about it. Because honestly, it's a fucking fascinating fucking history
Yeah, but
when it's fucking taught. And if
it's
they
edited.
yeah, it's edited. But like so many kids don't like it because it's
stupid.
It's boring. The
Because
way
you
they
know, but I-
teach it
but I
is
also-
fucking boring.
But I also
man.
understand it sounds stupid. It's like that happened, and that happened.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
You can't link anything together.
And you have to memorize this date and that date and the other thing. But it's so fucking interesting to hear the fucking things that really happened.
Yeah.
And you know, and like the first time you know, the first time you learn about things that you grew up, these mythologies that you grew up with, like I remember in the African American history class that I took my first year in college, and we did this whole thing on Rosa Parks. And I didn't know. I thought Rosa Parks was just some like, you know, she was just an old lady. And this is the story that you got. She was an old lady and she was really tired after work.
Oh.
And she wanted to get a seat and, they, you know, she stood up and she's such a brave one. Hell no. She was a fucking activist, man. She had been an activist for fucking years and had done this on numerous occasions and was like constantly at it and constantly.
They actually take credit away for its due.
Yeah, and actually make her out to be this
she's
like
just a tired old woman.
Yeah, but she was fucking not. She was a fucking warrior.
She was tired of that.
And when you learn that kind of shit and you go, fucking hell, if they taught the fucking story this way, people would really be interested in it. And I'm not just talking about like, you know, African American history, but there's so much other shit that's so much more interesting.
True, because, you know, there's a thing when you're a kid, you get this version of the truth that's so cleaned up and edited, and so that you'll have it that when you get older, you don't. It takes you so long to accept and understand how varied and flawed and complex human beings are. You know, you have these heroes, and you know how they say never meet your heroes. It's because I don't think you're supposed to idolize people to the point that you think everything they do is perfect. You know, like
no,
now it's instead of people being like, okay, yeah, George Washington, the first president of America, right? Instead of it being like, yes, that's what he did. He got the first thing, but you can't. Then it's like hard to understand that he was an enslaver. So people feel like I got to hold on to these views because you know you've ruined it. It's like you basically murder Santa Claus every day.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do
that. I mean, you know, and
accept anything.
Yeah, I mean, and like, you know, Santa Claus is fucking Santa Claus. He's pretend and make believe,
exactly.
And it's okay to leave him be there. Yeah, but George Washington was a real fucking person.
True, but not anymore.
Exactly. You've turned him into a fucking Santa Claus, which weren't wooden.
What were they?
They were fucking slaves' teeth.
Oh, I didn't know that. What?
Oh
what?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
They took teeth out of slaves and he put them in his own fucking.
You're fucking kidding. Oh God, I hate Googling shit with you.
George Washington slave teeth. You might struggle to find. Well, it'll be there. It'll be there, but it'll be like completely. People will be like debunking it, but it's not.
You gotta be fucking joking.
It's not debunkable. It's fucking true.
Are you serious?
It was one of the many things that they did. Like, you know, like they had no idea about. Like, I mean, this was like the 17.
I get it. No,
he died in like 1790.
I mean, I think the French do that.
8 or something, or maybe 18 or whatever.
Saying of a hippo?
Yeah, it was the teeth out of horses, teeth out of his own slaves.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No, it's true. No, it's true.
So
no!
Yeah.
You're fucking fuck.
Awful. Yeah. Awful.
He paid for Negroes' teeth.
Yeah. And so, you know, like, why we need to know these things about these fucking people because they're not Santa Claus.
Of course it is.
And they color our fucking version of. And I'm going to bring up another one. Then you're going to roll your eyes now because you always roll your eyes at least once or twice during the show. You roll your eyes.
I roll my eyes every day. All day.
I was thinking about this again the other day. Like, they're going on about fucking sending more fucking weapons to fucking. Germany doesn't want to send these tanks to Ukraine.
Oh, I just saw that.
And the U.S. is like, no, you've got to send the tanks. And Germany's like, look, we don't want to. Germany is like right next door to fucking Russia. I mean, Germany's here in fucking Europe. Russia's there. They've been at war with fucking Germany like 4 fucking times in fucking last 200 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Germany's well versed in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Germany
here's
doesn't
something.
wanna
I'm like, I've always, even from the time I was in high school, I remembered saying, like, why do we hate Russia so much? Why is Russia so bad? Like, and if you think about it, the Second World War ended in 1945, right? And without the Russians losing like 27 to 30 million fucking people in that war, the Allies never would have beaten the fucking Germans.
Yeah, because they were hitting on 2 fronts, like more than 2
And when the war ended, the U.S. and the Allies and the Brits and the sort of the West, let's call it, right? They bent over fucking backwards to throw money at Germany to fucking revitalize Germany. What did they do for Russia? Nothing. Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
They were like,
they didn't want them
fuck you.
They
immediately turned them into the fucking enemy.
Yes.
And so you wonder why we have the fucking problems that we have now. It's been like 100 years of fucking treating Russia as a fucking enemy when it was like totally fucking unnecessary. Like you might have actually, you know, had they fucking like done something like a Marshall Plan in Russia, they might have actually sort of like brought them over into a more Western fucking way of thinking. Whether that would have been good or not, because I mean it was thanks to the I don't
I'm
know.
not gonna do that either.
But I'm saying, like, we've created this
But
fucking
it would
whole
have been
mythology
more,
of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have had a more diplomatic relationship.
We could have had a better fucking relationship, and but no, because we had so much money, there was so much money involved, and having an existential enemy right on the border of the West fed into the fuck, which is what we're back there now.
Yeah, when you actually think about it, like really, like what really tipped off Russia to be considered the USSR to be considered the enemy? Because like, if you think about it, Germany had just finished killing millions of people. And then Russia had its, obviously, it's like whole, they had the Bolshevik Revolution before, they had all their shit. So what did they do?
They met, ironically, only several months earlier in Yalta, in the fucking Ukraine, to have a discussion about how they were going to fucking.
Wait, why am I gonna roll my eyes now?
I don't know, because you always roll your eyes at me.
Oh, okay.
at least once in a show. But you know, like. There was the need to have. First of all, they were fucking terrified of communism.
Yeah, I could see that. They wanted to.
But my point is, like, even from and I'm not of that particular. I've always been a Russophile. I admit it. My hands are up. I mean, you know what? We did that show a couple of months, a year ago, and you know, I always have, but I've always admired the Russians. To think of what if you look at the positive things that the Soviets did, it was amazing, man. They brought. I mean, I know a lot of people. There were a lot of look. A lot of bad shit happened, but a lot of bad shit happens in every fucking country. To just look at the bad shit.
Don't just look at the bad shit, but I mean.
Yeah, no, but to be selective only about just looking at the bad shit and not look at like dragging like millions of people out of poverty, dragging millions of people out of illiteracy, dragging millions of people into like a reasonable fucking housing. You know what I mean? Like. And what happened in like certain parts was fucking horrendous. But I have to ask, would that have happened if the West had been a bit more cooperative with the Soviets?
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Could they have created a better fucking system to help all the people instead of fucking just like decimating that population? To modernize Russia as quickly as possible and the Soviet Union as quickly as possible, could they not have done something? Except they were so recalcitrant in their resistance to like this communism, this evil communism. I just think that and like I said, my hands are up. I've always been a Russophile. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean I'm like a Putin fucking puppet.
No.
But I've always admired the Russian project. You know, and I recognize. Some of the things that happened, there were fucking some horrible things that happened. You know what I mean?
It's actually really interesting. Like, you know, Americans and their ability to, well, when I say Americans, I don't talk about generally.
Yeah, the establishment, the kind of, yeah.
How it's been so easily forgiving of certain places. Like, if you do think about it.
Yeah.
Pause at 1945, everything's over. They turn around and like, you know, they're basically like, Yuri, you know what I mean? Like, it was crazy. But then you think about like Japanese and whatever, they really.
The Japanese, they took the Japanese fascists and they recycled them.
Yeah.
They recycled them. Shinzo Abe's party was like, we're all fascists.
When we were looking at that because of the, was there an assassination?
Yeah, there's some guy assassinated with like a homemade fucking gun and shit.
That was weird, hey? That was a weird moment, and then nothing else.
Yeah.
Now we didn't talk.
No, it's gone. It's gone because you can't delve too deeply into Shinzo Abe and that, and now we have like Taiwan. Nobody wants to talk about the Kuomintang, which was the like Chiang Kai-shek's fucking people, and they were like outright fucking fascists.
Yeah, and the thing is, Americans
supported them. I mean, it's always been that way. It's like we'll recognize, we'll talk about like the millions of deaths in Russia, and we'll talk about the millions of deaths in China, but we won't talk about the millions of deaths in Indonesia. We won't talk about the millions of deaths in Taiwan. We won't talk about
the Japanese. Really,
we don't really talk about any of this shit.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
The thing is, though, it is funny that, like, if you think about, okay, when did the war, was it September? Was it September? No, September 1st, 1939 or something, you started the war, right? World War I.
Yes,
whatever,
thereabouts.
1945.
Yeah.
Take the next day after the war ends, right? They turned around and they were like, you're evil, you're evil,
Yeah.
But they did forgive every other, I mean, like, even it, like, it's
there was
crazy.
a huge contingent of within the American fucking high command that wanted to turn the fucking tanks and keep going. Because they had gotten to Berlin, they wanted to keep going to Moscow. No, they did.
Yeah, I get it.
They did. I mean, there was like
it would have been the perfect time.
George Patton was one of those like who was like,
he's a psycho.
yeah, but I mean, he was not like an outlier.
Yeah,
he wasn't an outlier.
He was not alone. I get that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry,
Yeah,
we're
sorry,
sick.
my
It's
fault.
cold.
No, it's just fucking freezing cold
It's
here, man.
fucking
Jesus
freezing
Christ,
cold.
man. It's like, so yeah, I mean, I've always been like, I've always admired the Russian sort of, and like I've read a lot of Russian literature when I was younger. I haven't read much lately, but like, I find them they're resilient, fascinating fucking people, and I think they're really cool. And I think we've done them a disservice by treating them like fucking pariahs for the last century, and we have ever since even before the revolution. In 1917, the revolution happened in 1917. Well, I mean, it kind of started in 1905, but really the sort of the November, October revolution, which was like kind of actually in November, that took place, and then the Bolsheviks took over, and ever since then, we have pumped money. The West and capital as a whole has pumped money into anybody willing to fight against them, no matter how. They didn't give a shit whether they were fucking Nazis
several continents.
On several continents.
Several decades of time passed between certain bullshit.
Yeah,
you're right. We're right back into it, and I think
yeah,
better
we
for
are,
the United States. We are, and maybe for some people in Russian government too.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, listen, I'm sure. I mean, I know there's people in Russia making money off of it.
But there's definitely
this guy's in Russia making money off of it. There's no question about it, man.
Americans or Russians who are normal or who are.
No, God, nobody who's not in the fucking multi-billionaire class is making any fucking, is getting any joy out of this,
And it's also
man.
just the general consistent fucking terror that people live in.
Yeah,
it's so fucked up.
I mean, it's like in 1984, and I hate to quote 1984 because it's like a real right-wing thing to do, but I've actually, unlike most right-wing assholes I've read it more than one occasion.
Yeah.
Most right-wing assholes just put some shit that they fucking seen somebody else put up on Facebook, right? But like, there's always a war. There's always they go like if the war was Eurasia and then it was East Asia the next day, and like one of the things that Winston Smith has to do is he has to go into his office and change everything to make it so that East Asia was always the enemy, even though Eurasia was the enemy last week. Like they go back and they change every single bit. It's forever war. You've always got to have an enemy, because without an enemy, there's no. You need that to keep that fucking military, industrial complex churning out product. I mean, they love this shit. They've just actually completely They've obliterated the fucking supply of weapons in the U.S. and now those have to be they have to restock all those weapons, and so they're going to go right ahead and fucking sign more, and the budget's going to be huge.
But that, psychological warfare is so deep.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a cop. Because imagine, we said this before. You have a cop who goes and let's say there's some people they've served. A lot of cops have served in the military. It's common, right?
Yeah.
And they serve in the military, and they go, and it's like you see this thing. There's this, and it's with the news and the media and everything else, and everything. It comes into things. You're like, let me turn on the community too, because you don't think so, but that's why. We said a lot of cops, police, communities that are not their own.
Not their own, yeah.
And it's really like this would never happen in my town. You'd be like, just the town over. You're just in the town over.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, it doesn't happen in your town because you live there. It happens here because you don't fucking live here.
Yeah, are you
That's
crazy?
why. I mean, just the cops and when you perpetrate the shit that the U.S. has perpetrated abroad, and it's like we don't know half of the shit that's going on right now. We don't know like 3/4 of the shit that's going on. I mean, there's U.S. troops on the ground in fucking Mali and fucking all over Somalia, all over Africa, all over the fucking place.
With different names.
Yeah.
Different names.
And so
support,
these guys muster out of the fucking army and they join the local police force. So they bring the same tactics. They bring the same tactics that they had in the military to their. So it's like enemy combatants. The people in the neighborhoods that they're policing become enemy combatants. It's just like you bring your fucking shit home with you. It's disgusting.
Yeah, because you just think about it. You're like, well, how does this help? And then there's just this kind of idea of policing your neighbors. I mean, I don't even police. I mean, neighbors. I'm not even talking about neighborhood watch. I'm talking about people really you look for certain things or virtue signaling and weird and then we just make each other.
But the LA cops fucking tasered a guy to fucking death in Los Angeles.
The BLM?
And he was a fucking a school teacher. They tasered this guy to fucking death.
It was an accident, no? Well, it wasn't an accident. No, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't an accident, but it was that like they misidentified him.
Yeah,
Like, he was black.
Yeah, but then they leaked out. I read this morning as well. They leaked out a report that his toxicology report got accidentally leaked, and he had fucking cannabis and some cocaine indicator, some indicator that he may have taken. It's bullshit. Yeah.
I love when cannabis gets used as something. I'm like, you're stupid.
Yeah.
Cannabis is the least violent, violence-inducing kind of.
I mean, the only thing you've got to be afraid of is if you're a fucking pack of Doritos.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're dressed as a pack of Doritos, you might be fucking in trouble.
You might
If
get
a bunch of stoners walk by. You know what I mean?
manhandled.
That's fucking it, man. Just fucking ridiculous,
If you
man.
got a Cheeto tan, you might want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like this whole fucking situation is like just, you know, we you send it out abroad and it comes back home. You can't
Exactly, that's what I
possibly
mean.
not fucking, you know. I mean, you know, like I was watching. There was a mass shooting on Sunday,
Sunday or Saturday, right?
Saturday or Sunday, and it was 10 people were killed, in
No biggie.
just outside Los Angeles.
No biggie.
No biggie. But it, like I watched Democracy Now! Today, and she said like this is blah blah blah. This is the 33rd mass shooting of the year, and today's only the 23rd
Oh,
of
right.
January.
Sorry, I thought we were still in 2021, 2022, and I was like, that's not
We're
bad.
only 23 days in.
Oh
you know what
my.
I mean?
So that's wow.
Yeah, it's the 33rd mass
really?
shooting, which is like mass shooting qualifies. I think it's more than 3 people shot in the same incident. I'm
No,
not.
I thought
sure.
I think it's.
Maybe 4, something like that. Anyway.
Or no, maybe change to 5, 6. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
There's
And-
like a gunstats.org or something,
Yeah.
and they said how like the media's changed to what a mass shooting is because before it might have been
Yeah.
before 3,
Yeah.
more than 3,
Yeah.
and now a mass shooting might be more than 6.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like
They have to.
you know, you watch the TV, and like, you know, I'll be going home tonight and watching all my cop shows. Everybody's got a gun. Everybody's shooting everybody else. It's just fucking guns. You know what I mean? Like, I got a fucking episode of SWAT now to watch tonight, and God knows what it's going to be.
So
I
excited.
don't know. God knows. I'm sure the Russians are the bad guys.
Like a couple years ago, it was Koreans, and it was like Asians and China, and it was
Yeah.
like every single bad show you watched, it was that, and then it's like I don't know.
China, yeah.
We're gonna go back to Russians and go for a good class.
Yeah, I think we're like definitely going with Russians, and I think Russians are going to. I mean, like again.
And how
Yeah.
are like and how stupid are we? Like they did this during World War II. You did this during World War One. You've done this at every fucking war where you just like blast people with this bullshit all the time, and we still go for it.
Yeah.
Because people still are like, you know, oh, Russia. And you're like,
Yeah, I don't.
you know, we could actually just be having a real discussion between. We're talking about like, you know, Eastern European politics, how Russia comes into play, NATO, and I think that would actually be fair to Ukrainian and Russian people.
Yeah.
To really be talking about it and not like, because I feel
It's
bad.
not about that, Salam. It's not about that.
I know, but to be fair to them, you know, it's not fair. 'Cause
There's no money in that. I mean, the money is in.
Yeah.
The money is in. You know, when you have a fucking like a fucking what do they call the javelin? When you have a javelin missile and each one of them costs like, you know, $500,000 fucking dollars, you know, and you're selling, you know, like hundreds of them a day to the fucking
You don't wanna
Ukrainians.
talk about that.
You don't want to talk about peace, because you're fucking making the fucking bank, man.
But then it's the same thing, like when you're talking about independent journalists, where are they?
They are.
They're just fine.
They're out there, but their
their
voices are just
getting-
fucking getting smothered, man. And they're getting smothered, and they're getting smeared as being like, you know, they're Putin puppets.
Well, that's where I'm going to roll my eyes. If you bring up, what's his name, Glenn Greenwald.
I'm not going to bring up Glenn Greenwald, but I will bring up somebody else who gets fucking.
Who? Matt Taibbi.
Matt Taibbi and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate and people who have said, look, wait a minute, let's fucking just cool the jets here on this
Do
fucking.
you know what honestly
Russia
truly,
thing,
truly fucking gets me? Is I think of stuff like, you know, and we don't talk about Palestinians, we don't talk about anywhere else, we don't talk about
No.
the Yemenis, we don't talk about
No, it's awful.
Yemenis.
No, you're right. You're right. It's
and,
awful.
And that's what really gets
It's
me.
all-
Not because of
I-
the Ukrainian people, I mean just because the media is so fucking
In
stupid.
fairness, I've started watching Democracy Now! Again. In fairness, like
She's going in.
Amy Goodman did say that there was a Palestinian guy killed, and he was like the 12th Palestinian killed by the Israeli
year.
Defense Forces this year
Okay.
in 23 days. You know, so yeah, no, I mean but that's so ongoing. It's like, you know, and it's kind of like that's kind of on the low simmer, right? You know, we're not pumping the billions and billions and billions of dollars of resources into those fucking conflicts like we are with fucking Ukraine. So I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. we should be talking
That's
about
what pisses me
Yemen.
off. I just-
We should be talking about Yemen. We should be talking about Palestine.
Because those are ongoing things that, like, you know, just some simple policy changes would make the biggest difference. But it's the way that we perceive it, the way that it's brought to us, the way that everything. It's just like this thing that's never going to get solved. As much as they try to be faceless.
But I mean, the people who are telling you what's going on. I mean,
They should be responsible.
well, I mean, you look at the fucking thing. You look at the fucking like the American Sunday news programs. They have guys from Raytheon and fucking Northrop Grumman and the Pentagon and
So hold them
fucking
responsible.
they
That's
all
what we
come
need.
in and they fucking sit there and tell you that we got to get we need the new tanks because the new tanks are good for that and we need to get them in there because we need the blah 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 blah. And meanwhile, they're making money from that shit.
Yeah, you got money as a
There's
mouthpiece
never-
to come and tell me a
There's
lie
never a
about the thing that
disclaimer.
you're making money
There's-
with.
if I was like asked on one of those shows, they would have put a disclaimer like, "Just want to let you know, Vinnie is a self-admitted
Very
Russophile."
true. Can I be
They would
honest-
have to say
Can I
that.
be honest with you? That's very true because I see that on Fox News, and then
Yeah.
he's like, "But you were." It's like I worked for the defense ministry or whatever, some stupid shit like that. But then I also was worked as like with Raytheon, and you're like, "Wait, what?" So like you
Yeah,
work
yeah.
for the government and a private.
But most of the time they don't say that. They never.
No, they don't. They don't, but you would
they
have
don't.
to.
I would have to say it because I'm admitted that like I've always been like I've studied Russia and I really like Russia. It's terrible journalism. It's not journalism. It's
propaganda.
It's propaganda. Yeah, it's pure
Word of
propaganda.
the day, propaganda.
Word of the day,
Word of the day.
propaganda.
All right,
Anyway.
well, we're gonna figure out a way to
Yeah.
fix stuff. I'm like, goodness.
I'm going home to watch my cop shows anyway.
You don't-
3 weeks without a drink for me as well. 3 weeks, no beer, nothing, not a drop. Huh?
You smoke weed?
I don't. I wish I could, man. I really wish I could smoke weed, but I just don't.
I feel like I gotta try to get you. Is it because it's wait?
like
you
it
smoke
turns my
cigarettes?
fucking brain off.
You gotta get the right weed.
I guess, man. It's
There's-
like I'm in
no,
a
listen,
fucking like it's like I'm in a barrel of
Not to
that
plug,
green
not to
fucking
plug
slime.
Wanted or anything. There's just stuff that, like, honestly, I will get him to get you something. That's crazy.
All right, we'll see. I'll try.